Hi, this is Shannon McNulty. Thanks for joining us on our Facebook Live interview where we're going to be talking with Amy Brackett. She's one of our savvy parent experts, and we're going to be talking today about teaching your kids about money. I love this topic, and just to give you some idea of how we came up with this idea, I mean, obviously it's something that is key to what we're doing as savvy parents and teaching about money, but this particular one came up because Amy posted on her Facebook page a post about how she was teaching her daughter about money and the activity that she was doing, and I said, Amy, we really need to do a Facebook Live interview on this topic. So are you up for that?
Yeah.
And she was totally up for it. So just to kind of give you an intro, Amy, you want to tell us about what you do, what your role is?
Sure. So I am a senior vice president at the Solaris Group. Solaris is a wealth management firm, and we work with individuals and families and some nonprofits as well, managing their investment portfolio. I serve on several finance and investment committees as well, and I'm involved in Bowery Babes, which is a mom's group, and I'm treasurer of Bowery Babes.
Tell us about Bowery Babes, because I love that organization.
Sure. So Bowery Babes was started in 2005 by a bunch of moms who met doing prenatal yoga at a studio on the Bowery. And they formed kind of an email group, which grew and grew and grew, eventually became a Yahoo group, and then eventually was incorporated as a 501c3. So Bowery Babes serves moms from pregnancy through the early years of motherhood and beyond. We have different events ranging from panels on applying for preschool or kindergarten, different parenting experts. We did one actually on legal and financial planning. Actually, it was in the context of divorce. Yes,
that they did.
Yes, we did that earlier this year, which we had a great turnout. We do monthly lunches for working mothers, which I help coordinate, and all sorts of different events.
Yeah, and you have a lot of members at this point.
We do.
Right?
It's a couple of thousand at this point. Yeah, and
because
I got
started out with just a couple. This was like
just
very
a handful.
Grassroots.
Yeah, the whole growth has been very grassroots, and even the events, from meetups in the park to much larger events, it's pretty grassroots. And I got involved before my first was born. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and so I got involved when I was pregnant with my daughter, and it was just a great way to connect with other parents and expectant parents in the neighborhood.
That's great. So if you're in the New York area, what's the website?
BoweryBabes.com.
BoweryBabes.com. It's a great resource. I would recommend it. And so Amy helps that organization with their finances.
I do.
And
I like to keep busy.
Yes, she's one of the busiest people who I know. So you have your hand in a lot of things. And tell us about what you do in your job, how you got involved in financial advising.
Sure. So I've been at Solaris now a little over 10 years, and in my role as a financial advisor here, I work with clients, helping to manage their investments and provide financial guidance. I started out actually in investment banking right out of college, and then I worked on
more on the corporate side of things.
Yeah. So mergers and acquisitions and IPOs, and then I worked on the buy side as basically a stock analyst for several years. So I was covering the retail and apparel sector of the market, which was very interesting. I met really interesting companies and management teams. But I felt like it was just very focused on, one sector, and I was pitching stock ideas to different portfolio managers. And I really wanted to work directly with clients to help them with their money, and have more of a holistic view of their portfolio rather than finding, the best stock in one area, really putting together a portfolio of funds that made sense for that particular client.
Great. So you moved from the corporate side, institutional side, which we kind of think of as Wall Street, the big ambiguous thing that we call Wall Street, to helping families directly.
Yes.
And growing their money. So Tell us about. So I want to jump back to the Facebook post that you put up on your page with your daughter and teaching her an activity that you were doing, teaching her about saving and investing and about money. So tell us about that activity. How did you come up with that, and
Sure.
how does that work?
Yeah, so what Shannon is referring to is we started allowance recently with my 5-year-old. So she gets, we do $1 for every year, so she gets $5 a week. And we found this great piggy bank with 4 slots. So it's save, spend, invest, and donate. And each week when she gets an allowance, she can decide how she wants to allocate her money, pretty much. So if she's saving up for something she really wants, she might put it in, actually she would put it in spend if she wants to spend it on some new toy. But we try to, even though investing is a little bit fuzzy, I think, for a 5-year-old, we talk about that as very long-term savings, which we'll talk more about later. And so every week when she gets her allowance, she can kind of decide where to put it.
So 5 is so young. I feel like is that already you're teaching kids
people,
about money at 5 years old?
Yeah, I mean, people can start allowance at different ages. And so much of it depends on your kid and if they seem curious and ready. But I think 5 or 6 is actually a great time to start.
Yeah.
The Money Savvy Generation is the company. You can find many of these on Amazon that make this. But, even if you just take clear jars and label them, save, spend, donate, you can do it by yourself and be creative if you want a Pinterest project.
Yeah,
but just having like a clear jar or a clear piggy bank so the kids can kind of see the coins or the dollars going in and kind of start making those decisions early. And then one thing we did is as she started to, actually we couldn't fit any more bills in the save because she was very into saving for
that's great.
as a vacation, which will take a while. We went to the bank, and if you haven't already opened an account for your child, I think it's something great to do. We did it actually when she was a tiny little newborn, and took her, and it was a little photo op. But if you have a 3, 4, 5-year-old, it's a great time. And you can kind of introduce the concept of, you can only take as much out of the ATM or the money machine, as my kids call it, as much as you put in, and the bank is a safe place to keep your money. So even just the lesson of like going up to, the teller at the bank and, doing the deposit slip, it was a really fun experience, for her to do.
And so why is this so important to start teaching your kids about money when they're so young?
Yeah, I think that, there's been a movement to try to have more financial education and personal finance, in elementary and middle and high schools, but it varies so much by state and by school. And I know growing up I had 0.
I didn't have anything.
We
did
nothing.
learn how to fill out a check, but that's useless at this point.
Right.
We don't hardly use checks anymore.
And the stats just nationally are pretty bleak when you think about, half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and live in, constant fear of finances. Depending on the statistic, 50 to 60% of Americans are carrying credit card debt with, very, very high interest rates. And 1 in 3 Americans have saved $0 for retirement. And that doesn't include, the many that have just a little bit, but not nearly the amount that they'll need. So
it's just such an important topic. So the younger
I think
you
it
can
is.
really
I think
start.
the younger you can kind of start just teaching very simple, concepts and just making it a part of everyday life. I think the better. And, it's even among the very wealthy I've seen where people, have huge trust funds for kids and they're so worried about the kids feeling entitled, and so they just don't talk about it, and the kids don't know about it, and the kids become 20, 30, 40-year-olds and have no idea that this money's there and have no idea how it's invested or what they should be doing with it. So I think regardless of your economic means, I think it's good to start when kids are early, and parents I think are reluctant. They feel like they're not an expert, or maybe they're not so good with finances, and so they tend to just do nothing and shield kids from it. And I definitely don't I don't think you should worry kids about money even if you're going through a tough time.
Which is
but
kind of teaching them about the concepts of money, how it works, the importance of saving. So some of those things that as they get older, that
exactly,
they, you know, are
just making it a part of
as
everyday
well.
life.
Yeah.
So even just little things, if you're going to the store and they're with you anyway, you know,
Yeah.
just talking about sort of decision making that you're going through, and just kind of teaching.
Because I think that, like, you know, parents or kids, they are learning anyway, right? Even if you're not sitting down with them and teaching them specifically, they're learning by watching you or watching their friends or watching their friends' parents. So they can see that that there's this concept of money, that you can afford certain things, that you go to the store and you pay with your credit card usually now, or some kind of ATM.
Well,
you don't actually see it, and that's
I'm glad you brought it up.
Because when I was growing up, you actually had money and you would see it, change hands.
And I
whereas
think
now you just swipe a card.
In some ways, it's harder because
it's more like
hardly use cash. You know, people some stores don't take cash anymore.
Yeah.
And with just swiping, and now with the Apple phone, you do your fingerprint and it pays for things.
Right, so
money becomes even a more foreign concept.
Yeah.
My daughter, I think about a year ago, we were in a store and she saw a doll that was $80 or $90, and I said, "No, we don't have money for that." And she turns to me and says, "Don't worry, Mommy, we can go to the money store and get money." So I think, sometimes it's just about, just talking about, just different trade-offs. And yes, we might have money in the bank to pay for that toy in the store, but, we have to pay for all sorts of different things, our housing and our food and different
I love
activities.
That, the concept of really having them understand that there are trade-offs, because I think that's key to so much of this, is that if you spend on one area, then you're not going to have necessarily enough money for other areas. And also the concept of planning for your future, of things that having future goals and planning and working towards those. So if you want the $90 doll, probably not going to get it, but if you wanted to save for 10 years for your $90 doll, you can do that, but you're going to give up a whole lot more along the way.
Right. One thing that I found works really well, because we all know how it works when you go into a store. Like, I can't even go to CVS with my kids because they want every single thing on the shelves at CVS. But, I use the concept of a wish list, and so kids love to be in charge, and I think if you can empower them and say, put it on your wish list, and if they're old enough to write, they can write it down, and if not, you can help them write it or make a list in your phone, and then every time they see something that they want, which is probably all the time, instead of saying no and it's a whole argument, you say that, thank you for telling me, let's put it on your wish list. And then every so often you can kind of go through the wish list and see if they even remember what they put on it. And sometimes they might, and then when you get closer to a birthday or a holiday, you have the list, you can go through with them and, and help them go through that, that experience of making choices.
Yeah, I love that, because then you're taken out of saying no all the time, right? It just never.
It's a battle that never ends well.
Never ends well. Okay, so how do you start the conversation about money? I mean, as when kids are really young, I think you can teach them in these very small ways. And then as they get older, there are more serious conversations you have to have.
Yeah, I mean, I would say when they're really young, like 2 or 3, it's not that you're sitting down and having this serious money talk, but, like there's a great toy we have. It's a little cash register, and it comes with toy money. And kids love to play store, and, they can sell things to their siblings or their friends. And, as kids get older, they can do a lemonade stand or that sort of thing. But I think, just looking for the teachable moments in everyday life. Like I said, an allowance is a great tool as kids start to get a little bit older. There's a sort of a controversy, like most parenting things. Do kids get allowance just because, or do they have to do certain chores to earn it? And, the one school of thought with having to do the chores is, it really treats it like a job. If you have to do your job and then you get paid. The other
there's some like you have to do some work in order to get
to
get
it.
money, because
Right.
in real life you don't just get money. So.
Right, and the chore might be, putting away your toys or making your bed, but you have to do something in order to earn that allowance each week. And then the other school of thought is kids can still have chores, but rather than linking it, keep it sort of separate. And there's a couple of reasons. One is studies show that kids and people in general, if there's a reward, they sort of care about the activity less and lose interest.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and so, if you have them do whatever you want them to do, clean up their toys or whatever, they kind of take pride in that. Very often, especially younger kids are so happy to, do it all by myself.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is you sort of risk, like, what if your kid starts to accumulate a lot of money from allowance and they just say, well, I have enough money, I'm not making my bed this week and I'm going to leave my toys all over the place. It's a little bit of a power struggle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's up to each family, but I think whatever you do, stick with it and, make that a part of how you approach it.
I think that's probably really important, just being consistent.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the different phases that we have. So we have, like, when they're really young, like 2 or 3, there's even things that you can do to help them understand money, and really that's more about, okay, the wish list type of thing that you're talking about, of having them make choices, you can have this or you can have this. So you want to talk about kind of at each stage in their development, how those things change?
Sure. So, I mean, I think with really little kids, like 2, 3, 4, it's little things like wants versus needs and the wish list, and just sort of talking through what you're doing. If you're going to the bank or you're going to the store, just talk to them about what you're doing. It's less about, the financial lesson at that point.
It's kind of just things they absorb.
Right.
Small things.
And I think depending on the kid, maybe when I can take my 5-year-old to a store and, if she wants something, sometimes I'll say, all right, see if you can find anything for $2, at Party City. And she'll run around the store looking and, have fun doing it.
So you're teaching her bargain shopping at an
exactly.
early age.
It's never too early.
There's sales going on.
It can be, like we use cash at the farmer's market. It's one of the few places that we still use cash. So it's, well, we have $10. Like, how many tomatoes or ears of corn can we buy? Or, it's just
it's
involving
like a fun
them.
project for them.
And then they even get a sense of, like, they start to get an early sense of, what things cost. So I think you can do that really at any age. If your kid is interested, and some kids love to play with money, you can start talking to them about, the coins and the values and matching up coins if they show an interest in that.
Yeah. And they have a piggy bank.
Yes.
At what point do they start? I mean, usually kids have piggy banks from when they're like 1.
Yeah, I mean, we got I think a couple as gifts when my older one was born, and they sat in the closet for a while, waiting because it seemed a little bit early. But I think by 5 or 6, most kids, understand the basics of I want that and it costs money, and
maybe they get like
maybe
$10 from grandma or something like that.
So I think that
pretty for their birthday
at a pretty early age, I think kids are aware, and it's a really good way if your kid is always asking for things. Again, instead of saying no, it's, well, how much do you have in your piggy bank? Okay, you have $4, and you really want that $7 toy. Like, maybe by next week you'll save enough money for that. And then going to the store with them and helping them, pay with their own money.
Yeah, that's great.
And
so
then
that's around like 5, 6, 7.
I've seen different ages as when people recommend it. I know my 5-year-old loves it, and we started it on her 5th birthday, and we've sort of kept it going. And I think my 3-year-old is getting curious, and we might start even sooner with him because he wants money like his sister. But then I also think it starts to introduce, like at an early age, the concept of donating money and sharing with those who are less fortunate. And it's then a really easy opportunity to talk about, not everyone has money to buy toys or to, go on this vacation or to eat at this restaurant. And you can start to have your kid involved in, well, what are the types of organizations we can give money to? And maybe they love animals, so you give to an animal rescue, or maybe you give to kids who, can't afford certain things. But it starts to introduce that concept of giving back, and earning money and saving money and then giving back money, to help others.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we covered the allowance. How about, either as kids get older or even when they're younger, like some challenging questions? Are there any questions that money can make people feel really uncomfortable? I feel like you do this as a living, right? You talk to people about money, as I do, and even getting them to that point where they're ready to have a conversation with each other. Sometimes even spouses don't communicate that well about money, or a professional, then that can even be challenging. So I think that's maybe part of why parents don't really maybe are teaching their kids about money. Are there questions that can be difficult for parents to answer?
There are. One thing I'll just add before I talk about that is I think that studies show people would rather talk to their kids about bullying and sex and drugs and just about anything other than money.
Wow, that's amazing.
And people are generally physically intimate before they're financially intimate, and many times people get married and don't really have a full picture of their partner's finances.
Which can cause problems.
One of the Savvy Parents articles that I wrote was about marriage and money, and depending on how you grow up and how your parents talk to you about money and how much money your family had, it really influences your relationship with money and your feelings and your spending patterns. And so, to one person money is happiness and power, and to another person it's, insecurity and stress. So, that's also why I think just from an early age it's good to have open conversations.
Yeah, so kids aren't developing negative feelings or associations.
Yeah, but one question that, definitely can throw you off is, kids ask all sorts of things, and it's always when you least expect it. So, your child might say, are we rich? Or how much money do you earn? And, whenever I get those questions from my kids, I like to just ask them, why do you ask? And that does two things. It gives you a second to sort of figure out how to answer. But also, kids have all different reasons for asking things, and it can help you answer the question if you know why they're asking it, and if they're worried about this thing, or if they're curious, or if they heard someone at school talk about how much money their parents made. Yeah. So I think, just asking them, why do you ask about that, is a good start. And then I think that, it's good to answer honestly. You don't have to give them your salary or your net worth or anything like that, but I think just being honest with them and saying, being rich is about being happy and healthy and grateful, as well as having money. And
so it's really, being rich, more about wealth. In terms of wealth can be health, wealth can be having a great family. There's a lot of things.
It can be a lot of things
are involved that you can sort of bring those concepts in. That I think it's so easy in our culture to, especially for kids, that they see these messages and associate money with everything, right? Money with happiness, and money, using money as a way to measure people and things. And so by talking about, I love just using the concept of a broader wealth, that is not, money is one part of that, but there are so many things, because obviously money is not the end all of making you happy. There are plenty of people with lots of money who are not happy at all, and people who have less money who are really happy because they have a lot of other things in their lives. So
yeah, and I think it's fair to say to them, we're very fortunate, and we have a nice home, and we have money for food, and we have money to do these nice things, and some people have more money than us, but a lot of people have a lot less money than us and might not have enough money for all these things. So I think answering their question directly without, you don't have to give all the details, but understanding why they're asking it and trying to make sure you're addressing that is important.
Yeah, and so that they know as well, probably having some kind of security about, okay, we have enough, and it's not, money is not a problem,
right?
But it's also, very few people have the money to buy everything, right? And even if they do, that's not something they really want to instill in their kids.
Mm-hmm. And I think especially, living in high-cost cities like New York, where we are, or San Francisco, or other cities, your sense of wealth gets a little bit warped because it's, there's such a spread between incomes, even, within 1 mile.
Because in New York, you can be living in, you could have 2 kids be living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you're still making way more than, the person who's living in, even next door in Pennsylvania, where I'm from.
Right.
So it's really hard to even convey those concepts because it's like you don't practically seem like you're living this exorbitant lifestyle, but comparatively, your salary can be a lot higher than in most parts of the country.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, okay. Are there any tools or resources that you would recommend to parents that can help them with these projects and teaching these concepts to their kids?
I think that, as kids get older, you can start to introduce in very simple terms the concept of investing, and there's all sorts of online, calculators and apps that you can use. But having your child buy even a share or a couple of shares in a company can be a really good introduction to investing. So maybe your child loves Disney, or my kids love to eat at Shake Shack, which is a public company. So, just having them start to take a little bit of ownership of that, and
so as they get older, to explain to them this concept of investing and saving for, this is part of saving for the future.
Sure, yeah, and it's also a good time, as fun as it is to pick a stock or two and watch it, go up and down, hopefully mostly up, but the concept of, not putting all your eggs in one basket, and, if you're putting some money here, you might want to keep some money in cash or keep some money in another investment.
Yeah.
So
it allows you. So this is like a website or something. And
there's different websites you can use. There's one that's called Stockpile where you can buy fractional shares in a company. So let's say there's a stock or company you like, and it's $300 a share, and your kid, is just investing their first $50.
Right.
You can buy fractional shares in a publicly traded company, and then your child can track it.
And this is specifically for kids.
It is, and there's all sorts. We're still not in that whole phase, but there's a lot of
pretty young to start.
There's a lot of apps out there if your kids are older, and then I think introducing for older kids basic things like a credit score, like what is a credit score and why does it matter? And maybe it doesn't matter to a 15-year-old, but when you're buying your first home or buying a car,
it starts to matter very quickly.
Matter a lot,
and you could, even once they turn 18, I guess they're eligible for credit cards.
Yeah, and I know when I was in college, there were constantly credit card companies trying to get you to sign up to get a new credit card, and you got a free T-shirt for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of temptations out there once they're in college, and
so you want to get to them before that to teach them that you can really hurt your credit, this credit score, which can hurt you down the line for all kinds of reasons. And so even before they're exposed to that,
and even just the concept of credit cards and carrying a balance every month, often the interest rates are just crazy, 15 to 20%. So, by paying off, a $5,000 credit card balance, you're making 15, or 20% on that money. So that can sometimes be your best investment. So I think, as your kids get older and they're more, high school going into college, there's definitely, concepts like that you can start to introduce. And there's apps, every day there's more coming out that are really targeted to kids, and saving and investing and on their level.
Great. Well, this has been so enlightening and so informative, and I hope that everybody here has appreciated this. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comments section. And we will also, this will be posted on the website on the Facebook page, but also Amy will be writing this up in an article for her next article when she publishes that. So keep on the lookout for that. And we are glad that you joined us, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Oh, Amy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for putting this together.
Okay, take care.